Continuing with our focus on the nights of Qadr, we looked at Suratul Ankabut yesterday. And today I'd like to look at Suratul Rum. Now this is straight after, it's Surah number 30. And the surah derives its name from the prophecy of the victory of the Romans over the Persians. The prophecy was made at a time when really there were no signs or hope of any victory for the Romans. And the prophecy of the victory of the Romans was accompanied by the prophecy of the victory of the Muslims over the Quraysh of Makkah. And the surah deals with the rise and fall of temporal power. So here we as human beings are again invited to reflect upon the fate of those who belied and ridiculed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other messengers sent by Allah, and those who disobeyed His laws. And the surah starts by saying, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ghulibatir Rum. The statement says the Romans have been defeated. في عدن الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين, in a nearby land. But then after being defeated, they will be victorious within a few years. Let me just first have a look at some points to ponder over this. If we look at the historical background of this, in 614 to about 616 of the Christian era, the Romans were defeated by the Persians. The Makkans rejoiced as the Romans were Christians. That means they were people of the book, and taunted the Muslims that their fate would be the same. At that time the Persians were fire worshippers. The prophecy was fulfilled in 624 of the Christian era, when Heraclius was the leader of the Roman Empire, defeated the Persians. And it was very similar of how the Muslims won against the pagans of Makkah. Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam says that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent emissaries to Rome and Persia, the Emperor of Rome received the Muslim envoy with honor, returning him with goodwill, although not accepting the invitation to Iman. But the Emperor of Persia treated the Muslim envoy with insult and contempt. He actually tore up the letter that Rasulullah ﷺ had written. And Allah rewards the Roman Emperor for his respect to the invitation of Islam, while the Emperor of Persia meets with defeat for the pride and insult. History is good. It's good to read about history because we build ourselves on the shoulders of history. Those blocks are already there. We learn from them and we move ahead. Let's look at some other aspects of the surah. In ayah 8, Allah says, أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Do they not reflect within themselves? Now I've been speaking about contemplation, especially on these nights of Qadr. He continues to say, مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَعَجَلٍ مُّسَمَّى وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنَ النَّاسِ بِلِقَاءِ رَبِّهِمْ لَكَافِرُونَ. Allah did not create the heavens and the earth and what is between them too, but with truth and for an appointed term. And most surely most of the people are deniers of the meeting of their Rabb. That is, they even deny that there is a life after death. And let's consider ayah 7. Here it says, يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِّنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They know the outward of the life of this world, but for the hereafter, they're absolutely heedless. It is along the same things that we talked about with Suratul Ankabut. Our thinking seems to be limited to this world so much. And we create a private world, a private web. We've taken, as humanity, as human beings, we've taken so many strides in the material spheres. Look at us in our agriculture, in the scientific and technological fields. We've made astonishing progresses. Look at medicine. We see heart surgery, we see heart transplants, so much. We've progressed so far. Yet somehow, we've forgotten to worry about the end of the world. We see people dying every day. We know, our essence knows that no one is immortal, but somehow, it does not have an effect on us. In these nights of Qadr, to seek out with contemplation, the akhirah, to have ma'rifah, because the world is for divine recognition, to be able to understand. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, admonish yourselves with contemplation. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam says, the greatest act of worship is to contemplate upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His power. And Imam Ali Rida alayhi salam says, worship does not mean only praying and fasting in excess. True worship is contemplating upon the acts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me read some more hadith so we can understand the benefits of contemplation. Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam says, the worship of Abu Dhar consisted mainly of contemplation and gaining lessons. We've all heard the hadith which says an hour of contemplation is better than a year's worship, and only those who have sense accept good counsel. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that if people had contemplated on the great power and bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would have returned to the right path and continued to fear the punishment of Jahannam. Because contemplation calls us towards good deeds and invites us to act on the results. One Hassan Saikal came up to Imam Sadiq and said, there are people who relate the hadith of the Prophet about contemplation of an hour better than standing in salah for the whole night. So in what manner should we contemplate? Imam said, visit ruins or deserted places. Ask, where are those who inhabited it? Where are those who built it? What has happened to them? Why don't they speak? In Surah Al-Rum, in Ayah 9, Allah says, أَوَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَيَنْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Have they not travelled in the earth and seen how was the end of those before them? كَانُوا أَشَدَّ مِنْهُمْ قُوَّةً وَآثَارُوا الْأَرْضَ وَعَمَرُوهَا أَكْثَرَ مِمَّا عَمَرُوهَا وَجَاءَتْهُمْ رُسُلُهُم بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. They were stronger than these, and they dug up the earth and built on it in great abundance than those that have built on it. And they came to them, their messengers, with clear arguments. فَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُظْلِمَهُمْ وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. So it was not beseeming for Allah that He should deal with them unjustly, but they dealt unjustly with their souls. It's good to understand, to look at history and see where people were, what they did. Contemplation is the way of recognition. And contemplation, it leads to remembrance. Remembrance, glorification. Again an ayah here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ayah 17 of Surah Al-Rum says, فَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ هِينَ تُمْسُونَ وَحِينَ تُصْبِحُونَ. Therefore glory be to Allah when you enter upon the time of the evening and when you enter upon the time of the morning. وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْعَرْضِ وَعَشِيًّا وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ. And to Him belongs praise in the heavens and the earth and at nightfall and when you are at midday. The first step of remembrance is verbal remembrance. And salah is obviously one of the obligatory verbal remembrances. If we look at Surah Al-Jumu'ah, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمُعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَىٰ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ. When the call is made for the prayer on Friday, hurry to the remembrance of Allah and leave off trading. ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. This is better for you if only you knew. In Surah Al-Taha, Surah number 20, Ayah 14, He says, إِنَّنِي أَنَا اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونِي وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي. Surely I am Allah, there is no God but I, therefore serve me and keep up prayer for my remembrance. Start simply. That's the tashahud. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. Maybe the best one is Tasbihati Arba, Subhanallahi, Walhamdulillahi, Wa la ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar. And there is no limit to remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many ayat of Quran. Remember Allah so that you may be successful. Remember Him frequently. Glorify Him morning and evening. Spend part of the night of Qadr in zikr, just sitting down, closing your eyes, and reciting either Asma al-Husna or the zikr that I've mentioned. Another aspect of remembrance is Salatul Tahajjud, which we have talked about many times, sometimes known as Salatul Shab or Salatul Layl. It is so much emphasized. Imam Muhammad Baqir says, one who believes in Allah and the Akhirah should not pass the whole night without performing Salatul Layl. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives so many, 26 qualities. I'll mention a few of them. He says, Salatul Layl causes Allah's happiness, friendship of the angels. It is practice of the prophets.